America honors the heroes of Bastogne, the 101st Airborne Division. Reviewing them are Supreme Commander Eisenhower, Major General Taylor, Commander of the 101st, and many others. Never before has a whole division won the presidential citation. These men led the Normandy invasion on D-Day, and then made history at Eindhoven, capturing a vital Dutch highway behind Nazi battle lines. Marlene Dietrich, on an entertainment tour for the troops, watches the ceremony somewhere in the battle zone as General Eisenhower affixes the citation to the divisional standard. The courage of these soldiers turned the tide at Bastogne. Theirs was an historic role in the Battle of the Bulge. This 12,000-pound earthquake bomb, which sank the Tirpitz, is dwarfed by a new 22,000-pounder, the world's biggest bomb developed by the RAF. On March 15th, Lancaster swept over the Bielefeld Viaduct. Down on this vital railway link between the Ruhr and Germany went some 12,000-pound bombs as a starter. Then, in its first trial, the new 10-ton Mammoth ripped the bridge in one tremendous explosion. Reconnaissance pictures show 6 spans completely demolished. In England, 500 young Dutch refugees came riding into an American convalescent center and straight into the hearts of the U.S. Army. For each youngster, there was a soldier comrade, and the visit started with a hearty lunch. There was affection transcending language barriers between the Americans who had been wounded in action and the undernourished little evacuees from the Netherlands battle zones. Symbolic of the strong ties between the two countries, the commanding officer gave Thea van Anrooy of Nijmegen the honor of presenting the Purple Heart Medal to Private Charles Ritchie for the wounds he had received fighting in her hometown in Holland. But the most fun was poking around the fuselage of a flying fortress. The children had often seen these planes flying over the lowlands on their way to Germany. When the day ended, the soldiers gave candy they had saved from their rations to their little guests as a farewell gift. But most precious of all, the children carried away with them the deep and abiding friendship of their fighting allies from America. South of Bonn, north of Koblenz, lies the little town of Remagen, an unimportant place, but for the crumbling German armies, perhaps the most fateful place all down the long course of the Rhine. For over the battered Remagen Bridge in mid-March, the only bridge captured intact, American tanks, trucks, artillery, and troops were pouring in a slow but steady stream. In the first days, before the bridgehead was safely established, engineers worked desperately to repair the twisted girders before the bridge collapsed. They measured the time in hours first, then in days. And while they worked, the divisions of the First Army passed to the East Bank. And the Luftwaffe, desperate to make good the Wehrmacht blunder, flung in scores of planes. But it was already too late. bridge went down 10 days after its capture, collapsed from the weight of transport over its damaged girders, for the enemy, the worst had already been done. It was the heroic engineers who had battled so hard to save the bridge, who paid the heaviest price when it was lost. Flung headlong into the water, some were drowned, some died of injuries, some were seriously hurt and were pulled out more dead than alive. Yes, the bridge was lost, but other bridges had already been erected, and every man who could be spared joined in the job of rescue. The engineers dead and injured here will not figure in battle citations. They conquered no strong points. They took no cities. They captured no prisoners. There were no battle stars for death on the Remagen Bridge. But because by their efforts and theirs alone the bridgehead was made possible, because by their heroism the costly attack by storm was avoided, each man who died here died for 100 of his comrades. By however many hours or days or weeks they shortened the war, they shortened it for us all. The Remagen bridgehead is established. Outside the town of Rheinbraul on the east bank, civilians are herded into the fields to escape the firing. North to the Bonn Plain, south to the Frankfurt Gap, the First Army moves forward, outflanking the whole central Rhine line of the weakening German armies. Meanwhile, cutting into the Saar Basin from north and south, Allied armies tore great holes in the enemy line. Up from Alsace, down from the Moselle, over from the borders of Luxembourg, the great drive went on with a speed and fury not seen since the days of the Normandy breakthrough. And the prisoners came in their hundreds and thousands, dispirited and beaten men. Bonn fell, and Mainz, and Worms and Kaiserslautern, and the great city of Koblenz, where the Moselle flows into the Rhine. Here there was a short, bitter fight. Into this city, battered by bombing and shell fire, the tanks went in, routing out the enemy from his strong points. This was a pattern victory, the sort that comes with such speed, the enemy is left bewildered and utterly lost. After the tanks came the infantry. From house to house, cleaning out the snipers, the machine gun nests, there was no stopping them, for they knew that this was to be the last great action before the Allied armies struck over the Rhine. More prisoners came in. Some had already changed into civilian clothing, but it did them little good. Koblenz fell, and they joined their 200,000 comrades captured in the great rout west of the Rhine.